Oh, shit.
And now,
It's on. The hour countdown begins. We have an hour until the roof collapses, possibly in the current building that we're at, which is Tom's dilapidated upstairs apartment, which used to be a kebab shop, and I think now it's a taco house. It's the bottom place, and that's where he pays his rent to, some taco lord. A guy that I imagine
Jose
actually has
the
a fake
taco
taco
lord.
hat when he comes in, saying, they're like, give me the money, and then puts it in and uses that as lettuce at the top of his taco hat.
he's one of the, he owns a Mexican restaurant, and he's one of those guys that will, like, play you guitar with a sombrero on when you're eating dinner. Is my
Does that
landlord.
improve the eating experience at all? Because I don't think it would.
Yeah, well, the food. Yeah, yeah, it does. I think it does improve the experience. It's a Mexican thing. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, our roof is it's been raining for 3 days. If anyone from Sydney who listens would know that.
Cabin
And
fever.
yeah, and we've been stuck in here for days because just outside the house, the awning of the Mexican restaurant has asbestos in it, and that collapsed last week, so we aren't allowed to leave. And the roof is now just outside my room has fallen in, and now a little bit more of it is well, Pete, the fixer-upper guy, is going to be coming in the next hour to try and like help us out.
So can we survive until that long is the challenge of the pod. So this may be a final black box call to everybody out there. This could be our final words. I don't think that it will collapse in on us technically, but it will kill us emotionally to see that we've got to clean up all that.
Yeah.
So can we emotionally live past the next hour is the challenge of the 12 pod cabin fever edition.
Yeah.
Also, I've got to say that I do really like the fact that there's a bunch of different buckets and foot baths out there that are catching all of the water that's dripping into your hallway. It reminds me a lot of something to do with a bear that owns a raincoat is your new flatmate instead of Wes, which I've got to say, just as grisly, hibernates just as much, not much of a difference really.
Yeah, we were saying before the colour of the water that's dripping down is this like kind of tinted yellow colour, like it's like asbestos yellow.
Asbestos is yellow? I always thought it was white.
Well, we
but
don't
then
know
I'm
why
probably
it's
just
yellow.
mistaking it with anthrax. I'm pretty sure I am now that I think about it. Asbestos probably is yellow.
No, it could be white. I have no idea.
Me either. Which
Anyway,
is a really good
brings
introduction
us-
to next. Oh my God. I can't believe that this is the introduction to the 12th pod. We're going to discuss something that everybody vaguely understands. I'm assuming because we've all seen it before. Water falling from the sky.
Storms. What
What
are
are
they?
they? Literally, what are they? No one in this room has any idea what storms are, and we're going to explain them to you.
Because it's happening right now, and we don't actually know what it is.
Is God angry with us? This is a genuine question, and the scientific understanding that we have at the moment is that he's pissed. He's
Yeah.
really angry.
Because like one of the things we talk about more than anything is like climate change and global warming and just like science and that kind of stuff. And then we're like, what is a storm? And we're like, don't actually know at all.
And neither do we know anything about climate change either. We have a real hipster level understanding of it, which is that just like, it exists, all right.
Yeah,
I don't
carbon's
know
a
why,
pollutant,
but a lot
man.
of scientists have told me that it does. Just deal with it.
Yeah.
And usually skeptics know a lot more about climate change than we do.
Yeah.
But we're very Mac user in that way. When someone's trying to describe
It's
them
the
that
same-
PC is
it's the
better than a Mac, we just sit there going,
Yeah, sure.
oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same level of like understanding of the climate as someone who calls carbon a pollutant, as though it's just like, yeah, man, like, pollution, like carbon emissions, like that kind of thing. Not that carbon is, it's not. But anyway, yeah, so what is a storm, Jordan?
Educating a generation. How amazing is that? Yeah, we have educated hundreds of thousands of Australians on the matter of climate change and our government's
know
action
nothing
towards
about.
it. We know less than most people listening to it. And most of the time when we have nasty comments in the YouTube section, we have no answer to that. We cannot answer.
Yeah, so what is a storm? Is it to do with like air pressure or something?
Yes, if I remember correctly from my days of tutoring this little Korean girl in year 6 who got a tutor in year 6, honestly, that is way too Korean for my likings. I felt very uncomfortable going into that house and having to force this little tiny kid to sit down that was going, were you playing hopscotch today? And I was going, well, you're studying science now, so we'll talk about that later, all right? And we never did. We never talked about hopscotch again. Such a sad childhood.
And you taught her all about storms.
Basically, we taught her about storms, and I pretended that I knew what was going on there, and her mum, who couldn't speak English very well, was overlooking me explaining year 6 science in the same way that I explain climate change with zero idea what it's about at all. And I think that finally, after a couple of weeks, she realised that I didn't know what I was doing. It took her a while because of the language barrier, but yeah, no, I was fired. I was fired, and fair enough. I really feel that she made a wise choice for her child's future in doing that.
I had a really similar thing when I was tutoring a girl HSC general maths a couple of years ago. I don't know why I was like allowed to be doing it. It was and I remember the night before her maths exam, she rang me up and asked me, how do you add fractions together? And I just didn't know. And I was just like, sorry, like you're gonna have to Google it. And I was trying to Google it, but I didn't know how to type on the keyboard a fraction, like 3, like is it /5, like plus, like how do you like Google maths? So yeah, she just I was just like, sorry, I don't know. And she's like, okay. And then she just went on to do her exam. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't know how well she went.
So that conversation lasted 30 seconds, did it?
No, I like went to meet her and stuff to like do kind of like a final, practice thing. And
after the fraction,
she was like,
fiasco.
I think I know everything. I just don't know the fraction thing. And I was just like, oh, I don't know either.
You had to admit that you didn't know twice to her.
No.
And you didn't do any study.
No, she like rang me up to like meet up to talk about the fraction problem. We met up. I couldn't answer it, and then I just went home. Yeah.
Why were you even approached in the first place? Because that was the same thing with me as well. It was this constant dumbfounded feeling of, why me? Out of everybody on the planet, why would you get me to teach the future?
Yeah, no, I like volunteered for it because you'd get like it was like a thing you'd get on your resume or whatever. It was fun. We became pretty good friends. It was pretty fun.
When was the last time you talked to her?
Like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, there we go. I'm pretty sure I am banned from seeing mine, essentially, because I see her. She catches the same bus as me sometimes, and I think that she's noticed me walking onto the bus a few times. Yes, and she will sit at the front of the bus to avoid me, even if that means having to sit next to a stranger where there's perfectly available seats at the back. You can very easily sit in front of me and ignore me there. But she's probably right to do it, because if she didn't, I'd go, "Hey, Kim Soo, remember me? I taught you about air pressure." And so, after that very long-winded story, I have no idea how wind is formed and how it creates the
So if anyone can tell us
pressure.
how a storm works, do you know, Robbie, how storms work at all? No. Nobody knows. I reckon many people do know.
Perfect opportunity to say he doesn't know the answer to a question either, as Robbie is currently wearing a beta house sort of
jock jumper.
He is wearing the kind of jumper that you get when you join a fraternity in the US, and for him to sit there with a very smug grin on his face and say, I don't know the answer to that question about weather, perfect.
You're wearing pretty much a similar thing as well. You're both wearing jock jumpers, and I'm wearing like a kurta, a yoga like shirt.
You look like one of the most spiritually enlightened men I've ever seen in my life. Can you please say something poetic about why storms are formed? We have every reason to say I don't know, but for you, in your get up to say that is very disappointing. You've got all right. There it is. Silence is sometimes the best answer from the East. So you've got a real,
knows.
Very good Western and Eastern perspective on this incredibly philosophical and spiritual question, which is, how are storms?
Man, it's a mystery, isn't it?
You just never got to know the answer to that unless you had some kind of a device in your pocket that is able to look up answers instantaneously within a fraction of a second.
Yeah, if only, right?
Yeah, but apparently, just like Tom with his other fraction dilemma, we don't know the answer to that either. We don't know if those contraptions exist or not. So, yeah, we're just going to go with the most substantive answer we have so far to the answer of why storms are formed, which is...
God did
said by Tom. Oh, there we go. Yeah, God did it.
Wait, did you guys have those like, are they called barometers? What are they? The things with the water, right? With those little floating things in them that are supposed to
measure how much water's fallen.
I do also, again, Robbie.
It's about
this
pressure.
Is great. It's just there's a lot of Robbie's culture emerging in his questions in the last couple, isn't there? Because that is a very. I would imagine that New Zealanders would be obsessed with barometers.
Is that what they call? I've seen quite a few of them there. Yeah. My granddad loved them. Yeah.
Do they, instead of a flagpole, have a barometer on the front of Parliament House there?
Yeah, pretty much.
I can't get over how both of you are wearing jock jumpers.
Yeah.
From
like,
different houses,
crouching
as well.
down next to each other, looking like these like jocks, just like sitting
of fighting. Yeah.
beta house,
It's
man.
a tough life.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's incredibly easy. It's college life.
Yeah.
That's why we don't know the answers. It's not because we had this hard upbringing where we had poor education. We just didn't want to learn. I don't know what your answer is, though, Tom. Why don't you know the answer to that? Is it because you've just spent too much time doing yoga to really get your head around
It
into
isn't
a book?
important. Yeah, no, I don't know. I just have no idea.
Do you know about barometers?
I know it's like something to do with
Air pressure.
yeah, air pressure and gas, and it condenses at a certain temperature.
Are you supposed to be able to like predict when a storm happens?
Yeah. I think you can through air pressure and stuff, but it's really hard. I think like climate is like one of the hardest things to predict.
Says the HSC, I'm pretty sure you came in the top percentile of earth science students throughout the entire state, didn't you?
Yeah, but we didn't learn
That's
about
your
climate.
answer.
We learned about rocks and things like that.
Oh, rock on. That is way more interesting anyway. Geology is so much better than weather, and geology isn't that great either. But I've got to say that out of all the sciences, it would have to be weather is at the absolute bottom. And every time you just
interest.
see there and they're talking about wind, all you can think is, what a bunch of blowhards.
It's really, I don't know, it would be kind of interesting. Rocks were pretty boring. Because we were always, it's the kind of thing
they
you
don't
think
move.
like...
They don't move.
It's the kind of thing you do think like, oh yeah, they sound boring, but if I put enough effort into it, I might realize that they're actually kind of cool. But no, you never. There's 3 kinds of rocks, and that's all you need to know.
Very much reminds me of the basic rule of going to a zoo, which is that you always try and educate yourself more when you're in the snake enclosure by actually reading the information about what that snake is
Just
at the
look
top.
at it.
And then you just look at it and it's not moving at all. And then when you go to the chimps, you're too distracted by their hilarious ape antics
To read
it, and it's way better.
Yeah, it
so
is.
maybe it's the same with sciences. The more it moves, the better it is.
Yeah, well, with that, storms should be very interesting.
Yeah. But unfortunately, they're not. So,
Yeah, so let's move
really,
on.
zoology and all the other sciences are not comparable at all. Who would have thought?
So now we wanted to talk about. We were just thinking before. Well, Robbie was saying how he just if he was sitting in a doctor's office and a celebrity like Jay-Z walked in, how would he be able to entertain Jay-Z in the sense of like how could they conduct a conversation? And I thought it was interesting. And yeah, what do you reckon, Jordan? Like, how would you're in this situation, you're in a doctor's office, and Jay-Z's wandered in, he's sat down, and you recognize it's Jay-Z. You're not allowed to ask him anything to do with being Jay-Z because he'll probably, like he won't enjoy that. There's nothing he'll get from that. What do you talk to him
Thinks
about?
about it too much, that subject, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he wouldn't
Jay-Z
like
would
just
think
a
about
fan.
Jay-Z far too much to... You couldn't add anything to that, could
to
you?
Jay-Z. Yeah, what could
His
he ever
knowledge of
need?
Jay-Z.
He's just like, yeah.
It is exactly the same as going to a geologist and saying that, did you know that amethyst is found 500 feet below the Earth's surface? Yes, I did know that. I am a Jay-Z-ologist. I am the PhD of that particular discipline.
Yeah, it'd be like going up to Jay-Z and just being like, yeah, did you know you have like 4 albums? Or like, however, it's just something that...
Such amateur
What can you say
questions.
to him? What could you say to him?
Hey
man, how's it going?
For some reason, and I have no basis whatsoever to believe this, but I do think that I could engage his interest for a very long time if I just, and allow me to sing this out in a way that I'm sure a lot of people will feel uncomfortable listening to, but I really enjoy it and find it hilarious that they sing like this for thousands of years and haven't changed. Come on, get over it. It's not that good of a way of... There's got to be other ways to express your artistic desires than always having this kind of tonality when you sing of, I think that you should talk to Jay-Z about Islam.
Why would Jay-Z be interested in
there? And, Taboo Tightrope hasn't even started, and that's coming up next. So there'll be plenty more of that. But for now, we'll just leave it at that.
Well,
That's
maybe
enough for
actually that's something that he wouldn't talk. Like, why do you think that? Is he like close to being a convert or something?
I think that he is a Christian, but have you ever noticed that Christians, Muslims...
I got 99 problems.
I don't know any Jewish people, but I'm just going to lump them in there. Jewish people as well. They all seem to be very interested in discussing other monotheistic gods. They've always got that kind of, again, that real Macintosh feel at the back of their head of, oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the case? They still think that their God is correct, but they
they'll be
like
happy to talk
discussing
about
the
it.
other one more.
That's such a funny answer to that. I would never think like, the way to connect Jay-Z is talk religion. That's how you'd get him. There's
I
nothing
don't even know
about
anything about it either. I would just have to read the Quran to him as if he was just a 5-year-old boy in Pakistan and he's sleeping on a goat.
Would he do it out of like politeness? Like, is that why he would keep talking to you? Because it's like rude not to like do that? Or I could see him just blowing you off if you tried that and just being like angry about it. Yeah, like, why are you talking to me about this?
Really, I could see him being incredibly argumentative. I think that Jay-Z likes to be in a conflict where he's coming off looking witty.
Yeah.
Which is not particularly hard for him, but not particularly easy either. He's just that classic... He's just your classic jock, isn't he? He thinks he's way wittier than what he is, and sometimes he hits a 6, but a lot of the time it's just it's a bit of a block, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stop putting in witty conversations when conversational little zests when it's not that good. Seriously, just as a little word of advice to pretty much every white male at a party ever, and Jay-Z.
Yeah. So
Don't you think that's just basically there's pretty much, when it comes to that, white people are definitely the biggest perpetrators of trying to make themselves sound more interesting than what they are. Definitely. And then the next group of people after that is rappers.
As if rappers wouldn't beat white people.
But a lot of the time I feel that when
Taboo.
you think that that's taboo, I would include Eminem in that, so it's very safely not.
All right, so like that leads us on to our next bit, which would be... It's kind of a similar hypothetical, which I think is a really interesting one to think about, is you're at a dinner party and you're allowed to just take whoever you want. All right, you're not at the dinner party. You're just watching a dinner party unravel. And
I always thought that we were the host at the end of the table in this scenario, but it turns out that we're not even a butler. We don't even get to interact with them.
You're
one of those little
butler's good.
handmaidens in the background. So you've just put me in a dress.
Yeah, you're
I thought
observing.
I was in a tux.
Well, you haven't qualified for it because like everyone at the party is just the most powerful of influential people who have ever lived, right? So you've got...
So your Forbes top 10
Yeah, of forever.
all time.
Yeah, so you got like Genghis Khan and like the whole gang's there. Who else would be there, firstly?
Genghis Khan plus 7.
Yeah.
I don't know why Genghis Khan was at the top. It always seems like a very odd one to me. I always forget him. That's the only time I ever really get his name in the forefront of my mind, really, is anytime you ever talk about cigarettes and how many people they kill a year.
Oh, and then
they say that's the equivalent of 7 Genghis Khans.
and he's killed more than anyone ever. Oh yeah, how's this question?
Apparently
right?
he is the greatest Al Gore of all time is Genghis Khan because he killed so many people that he actually reduced the climate output significantly into the Earth's atmosphere, and he is technically the greatest environmentalist of all time is Genghis Khan.
Oh man, yeah. I read a question the other day, which was who's taken the most human lives? Stalin, Hitler, Pol Pot, or Mao? Who do you reckon?
It was Mao, wasn't it?
Robbie?
Outright. And the worst is that it was his own people. Don't you think? Don't you think there's something always a little more sinister about that than somebody who goes out and kills like another country?
Well, Stalin did his own people as well, right?
Yep.
And
but you'd also include into that number as well, like all the Germans he took out in World War II.
Right,
they always include that, which was a significant amount of people as well. But yeah, definitely the vast majority was his. But I'm pretty sure Mao's was 100% just Chinese people.
Well, Mao is the correct answer. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, sorry. I did modern history. You can't say
All right.
that
So
one.
the whole gang's at the dinner table, and
Mao's there.
Mao's there. Pol
What the
Pot's
hell?
there. He'd be quite
Why is there
influential.
so many monsters at this
yeah,
table?
yeah. Well, that's the kind of the unfortunate nature of it, isn't it?
All right. There's also, if we're putting that as well, there is the Aztec Death Eater of Souls god. I can't remember him, but I'm pretty sure that he looks sort of like a dog, and he's got one of those stupid crowns on the top of his head.
Cortez is there.
Yeah, I like that guy.
So there you go. There's an example. So like the King Aztec dude was great, but Cortez would be more influential because he trumps him, right?
Trumping a god.
Well, they thought Cortez was a god.
True.
How
So that
influential
is
is that?
actually way more impressive, isn't it? He pulled the long con on an entire civilization and fooled them into thinking that he was a being that could not be killed.
Yeah, so you've got all of them there. The question is, who would hold the most clout? As in, who would be the life of the party, like the center of attention? Like everyone has some kind of status hierarchy when you're at a party. They'll be the person who, like, if they talk, everyone will listen kind of person, right?
Yes. Who is the jock amongst the world's greatest tyrants, mass murderers,
Or just
and
most
general kings?
Oh,
and
everyone as
leaders?
well. Yeah, so like Jesus is there, and like Caesar.
Which was also a massive mass murderer as well, but for some reason we see him as this great hero.
Yeah.
But as one historian pointed out a long time ago from a documentary that I can't remember, but he was saying that he's always just advertised as Caesar, the great killer of 1,000,000 Gauls, which is genocide.
Yeah.
That man committed genocide. But he is a hero, and I salute him. If I saw him walking past today, I would not even think about egging him. I would definitely wave and go, Caesar, there's a salad named after you now.
But you've also got a lot of people like Obama and,
Oh, as if he's one of history's greatest leaders.
No, but like I bet you if you did a survey, he would be very high up on that if that question was asked.
Yes.
But it doesn't
All
make him
right, he's
right.
there.
But he gets an invite.
But he is really like in that episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns throws out George Bush Senior 1.
Yeah.
And then Jimmy Carter says, "You too, huh? Hey, I know this great bar over here." And then George Bush kind of takes his shoulder away from his hand and says, "Get away from me, loser." I think that in the grand scale of history bosses, yes, Obama would be getting a lot of those trying to touch someone's shoulder and them going like,
Ugh. Yeah. Genghis Khan. Ugh. So yeah, who do you reckon would be number one? Who would be the biggest jock at the table?
well, as I was discussing, I think, and yeah, definitely, yeah, who would definitely be the biggest jock at the table. We're not talking about the man who has accomplished the most, but the man that would be able to captivate everyone's attention, and he would come out as the alpha male that would pull the hottest chick at the party back, which would probably be Cleopatra. There would be one chick at that party, really, wouldn't there? And she was apparently not even hot.
What about Thatcher? She be there?
I don't know what Cleopatra looks like, but I would just automatically go for the mystery girl as opposed to Margaret Thatcher.
So who is it?
Yeah, I would definitely say he's not even I suppose he's a leader in business. But definitely, I would say that Tony Robbins would be the biggest alpha male of all history. There, I said it.
Get a fucking life.
Yeah, for whoever doesn't know, Tony Robbins is a self-help guru who has the most watched TED Talk. That's pretty much his biggest achievement.
And sold the most self-help audio programs on tape in human history.
He is actually a pretty amazing guy. Like from all the, like his Tiger Woods story, like he's like coached like dozens of presidents. No, not dozens, but O.J. Simpson.
Yep. The list gets more impressive
Michael
and
Jackson?
more shady and dirty the lower it goes after a while. As yes, he keeps using in his old tapes from the 90s examples of when he used to coach O.J. Simpson,
Neil Armstrong.
Michael Jackson.
Oh, no, what's his name?
Yes,
Lance
he also
Armstrong.
taught Lance Armstrong.
Yeah.
There's always some guy in there that you find out that, yeah, his tips of human psychology potential were great, but you know what's even better than that? Steroids.
Yeah. I love those examples. You know how Lance Armstrong won 7 Tour de France's?
Because he was in the mindset of a champion.
No, he wasn't.
Well, yeah, he was, but at the same time, yeah, he basically had millions of Tony Robbins organisms flowing through his bloodstreams, as well as Tony Robbins saying, look at the prize at his brain. There's so much Tony Robbins in that man to win 7 Tour de France.
Imagine how like confident you have to be Tony Robbins to confidently sit at that table next to Cortez and be able to hold like
A-mug him.
Yeah. Like how is that? Oh man, it's such a weird thought seeing like Tony just being good mates with like all these people.
Which he is, because also, if you think about it, Obama is technically a mass murderer of not Pol Pot proportions, but he's up there. He's killed a lot of people through drone attacks. True. He is one of those history's greatest monsters. And then if you see him now, and there's a picture of Tony Robbins with his arm around Obama and that massive smile that he has, it becomes very scary when you think about the fact that Obama's responsible for tens of thousands of deaths.
Yeah,
but yeah, I can
Tony
see
Robbins
that's why I
got
can
him
see
there.
him holding court with history's greatest mass murderers. For anybody who doesn't know who Hernan Cortez was, he took down the Aztec Empire with 400 men. He faced an army of 80,000 soldiers, and he beat them all with 400 men.
Well, he had guns though, right?
Yes, everyone always says that he had guns and he had steel, and everyone thought that he was a god.
So they didn't want to fight. They wanted to, yeah.
Nonetheless, bringing down an army of 80,000 people with 400 troops.
It's still impressive.
Boss. That guy is a boss. Why won't anybody accept this? Everyone's always going, no, it's just horrible to say that man was an amazingly courageous human being. Yeah, it is, but at the same time, come on, call a spade a spade. It's that classic Voldemort, Harry Potter talking to the guy that sells him a wand in the first book, saying that, yes, terrible things, but great.
Yeah, it seems like once enough time passes, people stop thinking like, oh, what a terrible person. It just becomes like, oh, that's an amazing like event of history.
And as if 500 years isn't enough time, how is that too soon? Let's just call him one of the most brave human beings to have ever existed, please. And also on top of that, accept that in a conversation, Tony Robbins would out-alpha that guy. The guy that brought down an army of 80,000 savages in the middle that have never, like in a completely different environment to what he's used to. He came from aristocratic Spain, and then he's just in the middle of the jungle going, I'm imagining it must have been days. Think about hacking down 80,000 people.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like the Bill Maher thing of like, it's not a good thing what he did, but you got to give him credit for being like, it's quite a brave thing to go and do.
Yeah, let's stop I'm tired of bringing that up in conversations, and there's always some PC thug there that looks around and glances nervously, going, yeah, and then the conversation ends there. No, you look me damn in the eye and you tell me what I want to hear.
Yeah, Cortez was great. All right, so now we're going to go on to our
Goosebumps,
sponsorship for the week, which is from, of course,
Cheesy Flops.
Cheesy Flops.
Always been there for us.
From the beginning.
Me specifically, no one else has a pair, so it'd be really nice if you sent a pair to both Robbie and Tom, but I understand if you don't.
Please.
Oh, no, yeah, look, obviously, yeah. No, send Tom a pair, as he was nice about it at least. I don't think I said thank you when they sent me the email saying I sent you a pair of Cheesy Flops in the mail. I'm pretty sure I just said, oh, cool.
But yeah, thank you, Cheesy Flops. And thank you for providing us this awesome Goosebumps book by R.L. Stein.
Which was not
actually provided.
Physically provided by them. It was provided by my cousin up in the Central Coast who has a huge collection of them. It took ages to pull it out, and by huge, I mean that we both had to pick up the box together. It was
So
that
many
heavy,
books.
filled with Goosebumps.
Oh my gosh.
And we found the one that his sister thought was the scariest book, which is Stay Out of the Basement, which Tom agrees is the scariest book of
By
the
far.
Goosebumps franchise.
Definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah, I definitely think it is.
Even more than Schlappy, the live ventriloquist puppet.
Oh, that one's actually quite scary. And the mask is scary as well. The one where it's like Halloween and the mask gets stuck on her face.
Yeah, that is. What the hell?
very-
A demon face that merges with your own skin.
Yeah, man.
Grips into
And there
it.
was The Mask 2. It was really popular, that one. The TV show episode of that was very scary.
This is pretty good, actually. I like Tom's top 3 review of Goosebumps books that he pretty much sums them up in a sentence, really. They're very basic stories.
Yeah.
And now we are going to sit back and listen for probably 15 minutes to a
because last
chapter
time was very
of
long.
Stay Out of the Basement.
Yeah, so we do one chapter a week. So yeah, listen to the last podcast if you want to catch up on that. But yep, go ahead, Robbie.
Okay, all packed, Mrs. Brewer said, dropping her suitcases with a thud in the front hallway. She poked her head into the living room where the TV was blaring. Do you think you could stop the movie for 1 minute to say goodbye to your mother? Casey pushed a button on the remote control and the screen went blank. He and Margaret obediently walked to the hallway to give their mother hugs. Margaret's friend, Diane Manning, who lived just around the corner, followed them into the hallway. How long are you going to be gone, Mrs. Brewer? She asked, her eyes on the 2 bulging suitcases. I don't know, Mrs. Brewer replied fretfully. My sister went into the hospital in Tucson this morning. I guess I'll have to stay until she's able to go home. Well, I'll be able to babysit for Casey and Margaret while you're away, Diane joked. Give me a break, Margaret said, rolling her eyes. I'm older than you are, Diane. And I'm smarter than both of you, Casey added with typical modesty. I'm not worried about you kids, Mrs. Brewer said, glancing nervously at her watch. I'm worried about your father. Don't worry, Margaret told her seriously. We'll take good care of him. Just make sure that he eats something once in a while, Mrs. Brewer said. He's so obsessed with his work, he doesn't remember to eat unless you tell him. It's going to be really lonely around here without Mum, Margaret thought. Dad hardly ever comes up from the basement. It had been 2 weeks since he yelled at Casey and her to stay out of the basement. They had been tiptoeing around ever since, afraid to get him angry again. But in the past 2 weeks, he had barely spoken to them except for the occasional good morning and good night. Don't worry about anything, Mum, she said, forcing a smile. Just take good care of Aunt Eleanor. I'll call as soon as I get to Tucson, Mrs. Brewer said, nervously lowering her eyes to her watch again. She took 3 long strides to the basement door, then shouted down, Michael! Time to take me to the airport! After a long wait, Dr. Brewer called up a reply. Then Mrs. Brewer turned back to the kids. Think he'll even notice I'm gone? She asked in a loud whisper. Think he'll even notice I'm gone? She asked in a loud whisper. She meant it to be a light remark, but her eyes revealed some sadness. A few seconds later, they heard footsteps on the basement stairs and their dad appeared. He pulled off his stained lab coat, revealing tan slacks and a bright yellow t-shirt, and tossed the lab coat onto the banister. Even though it was 2 weeks later, his right hand, the hand that had been bleeding, was still heavily bandaged. "Ready?" he asked his wife. Mrs. Brewer sighed. "I guess." She gave Margaret and Casey a helpless look, then moved quickly to them. And then moved quickly to them.
What the hell?
I'll edit this out. Then moved quickly to give them each one last hug. Let's go then," Dr. Brewer said impatiently. He picked up the 2 bags and groaned. "Wow, how long are you planning to stay? A year?" Then he headed out the front door with them, not waiting for an answer. "Bye, Mrs. Brewer," Diane said, waving. "Have a good trip." "How can she have a good trip?" Casey asked sharply. "Her sister's in the hospital." "You know what I mean," Diane replied, tossing back her long red hair and rolling her eyes. They watched the station wagon roll down the driveway, then returned to the living room. Casey picked up the remote control and started the movie. Diane sprawled on the couch and picked up the bag of potato chips she'd been eating. "Who picked this movie?" Diane asked, crinkling the foil bag noisily. "I did," Casey said. "It's neat." He had pulled a couch cushion down to the living room carpet and was lying on it. Margaret was sitting cross-legged on the floor, her back against the base of an armchair, still thinking about her mother and her Aunt Eleanor. "It's neat if you like to see a lot of people blown up and their guts flying all over," she said, making a face for Diane's benefit. "Yeah, it's neat," Casey said, not taking his eyes off the glowing TV screen. "I've got so much homework, I don't know why I'm sitting here," Diane said, reaching her hand into the potato chip bag. "Me too," Margaret sighed. "I guess I'll do it after dinner. Do you have the math assignment? I think I left my math book at school." "Shh!" Casey hissed, kicking a sneaky foot into Margaret's direction. "This is a good part." "You've seen this tape before?" Diane shrieked. "Twice," Casey admitted. He ducked and the sofa pillow Diane threw sailed over his head. "It's a pretty afternoon," Margaret said, stretching her arms across her head. "Maybe we should go outside, ride bikes or something." "You think you're still back in Michigan?" "It's always a pretty afternoon here," Diane said, chewing loudly. "I don't even notice it anymore." Do you guys like this bit?
Huh?
No, I'll carry on.
A lot of description about events of somebody going on a vacation, and it's always nice to hear that somebody's about to have fun. So yes, I enjoy it.
Yeah, right. "Maybe we should do the math assignment together," Margaret suggested hopefully. Diane was much better in math than she was. Diane shrugged. "Yeah, maybe." She crinkled up the bag and set it on the floor. "Your dad looked kind of nervous, "Huh? What do you mean?" "Just nervous," Diane said. "How's he doing?" "Shh!" Casey insisted, picking up the potato chip bag and tossing it at Diane. Being laid off and all. "I guess he's okay," Margaret said wistfully. "I don't know, really. He spends all his time down in the basement with his experiments." "Experiments?" "Hey, let's go take a look." Tossing her hair back behind her shoulders, Diane jumped up from the chrome and white leather couch. Diane was a science freak. Math and science, the two subjects Margaret hated. She should have been in the Brewer family, Margaret thought with a trace of bitterness. Maybe Dad would pay some attention to her since she's into the same things he is. "Come on," Diane urged, bending over to pull Margaret up from the floor. "He's a botanist, right? What's he doing down there?" "It's complicated," Margaret said, shouting over the explosions and gunfire on the TV. "He tried to explain it to me once, but..." Margaret allowed Diane to pull her to her feet. "Shut up!" Casey yelled, staring at the movie, the colours from the TV screen reflecting all over his clothes. "Is he building a Frankenstein monster or something?" Diane demanded. "Or some kind of RoboCop? Wouldn't that be cool?" "Shut up!" Casey repeated shrilly as Arnold Schwarzenegger bounded across the screen. "He's got all these machines and plants down there," Margaret said uncomfortably. "But he doesn't want us to go down there." "Huh? It's like top secret?" Diane's emerald green eyes lit up with excitement. "Come on, we'll just take a peek." No, I don't think so," Margaret told her. She couldn't forget the angry look on her father's face 2 weeks before when she and Casey tried to pay a visit. Or the way he had screamed at them never to come down to the basement. "Come on, I dare you," Diane challenged. "Are you chicken?" I'm not afraid," Margaret insisted shrilly. Diane was always daring her to do things she didn't want to do. Why is it so important for Diane to think she's so much braver than everyone else, Margaret wondered. "Chicken," Diane repeated. Tossing her mane of red hair behind her shoulder, she strode quickly toward the basement door. Diane, stop! Margaret cried, following after her. Hey, wait! Casey cried, clicking off the movie. Are we going downstairs? Wait for me! He climbed quickly to his feet and enthusiastically hurried to join them at the basement door. We can't, Margaret started, but Diane clamped a hand over her mouth. We'll take a quick peek, Diane insisted. We'll just look, we won't touch anything.
I keep saying this.
And then we'll come right back upstairs. Okay, I'll go first, Casey said, grabbing for the doorknob. Why do you want to do this? Margaret asked her friend. Why are you so eager to go down there? Diane shrugged. It beats doing our math, she replied, grinning.
The voice changes every time.
Margaret sighed, defeated. Okay, let's go, but remember, just looking, no touching. Casey pulled open the door and led the way onto the stairway. Stepping onto the landing, they were immediately engulfed in hot, steamy air. They could hear the buzz and hum of electronic machinery, and off to the right, they could see the glare of the bright white lights from Dr. Brewer's workroom. This is kind of fun, Margaret thought, as the three of them made their way down the linoleum-covered stairway. It's an adventure. There's no harm in taking a peek. So why was her heart pounding? Why did she have this sudden tingle of fear?
End of chapter 2. It's so long.
But perfect build up to that last hair-raising question.
Yeah.
Why did she feel a tingle of fear?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to know, don't you? But you're going to have to wait until the next pod because we're not doing 2 chapters. That was bloody long.
Yeah, I remember we looked at how long each chapter was before we started this, thinking like, oh yeah, it's only like a page or 2.
Yeah.
How do we not notice that these ones are like, it takes like 15 minutes to read each one?
And yeah, we've aired your gripes, so there's no need to write those in the comment section. We understand.
Yeah,
It's fine. We're all on the same page, if you will. We all think that goes for way too long, and there's nothing that we can do about it. Sorry, if you've got any complaints with it, go contact R.L. Stein via snail mail, as that is written in the 90s, and I'm sure he's lost his mind since then. He's probably a very old man now, so just not to scare him, write it in snail mail. Don't inform him about the internet.
That's
He's
the
not
only
ready for
like,
that.
yeah, he only checks his snail mail. That's the only way he communicates. R.L. Stein.
And as if that guy doesn't have Hessian sacks filled with letters of adoring 10-year-olds, which must be just
They'd still
the
keep
worst
coming,
to look
wouldn't
at
they?
when you're 80.
Oh, wow. All right, so now we're moving on to...
Mr. Rogers seemed to like his life. But sorry, we're moving on to a different
What did
subject.
Mr. Rogers write? Was he the rabbit?
Mr. Rogers...
No, that's
I
Roger
think that was
Rabbit.
Roger the Rabbit. Not to be mistaken with Mr. Rogers, the mainstay of American television, who sat there and took off his cardigan every time he walked into his house that I'm pretty sure had talking furniture, but I've only seen it once. And it was a fun show, and
Is that with
I
the-
was way too old to be watching it at the time, so I thought it was pretty lame.
Is that the couch that like lifts up the cushion and it speaks through that? Like
Possibly
its
it
mouth
is.
is the cushion?
And it's kind of scary as well because Mr. Rogers, even though this is always just thrown around when everybody always says it's about an old man that talks to kids, right? And I think that it's usually way overplayed. But yeah, in this case, yeah, he really looks like a pedophile. Like he really looks like that guy touches kids. And so for the fact that there's all these animated creatures in his house that can't move, it seems like a very desperate, sad situation for everybody there except for Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, well, that's a good intro to Taboo Tightrope, Mr. Rogers being a pedophile.
It is, isn't it? Especially because I don't think that he was. I'm just saying that, you don't have to look so clean cut when you're that old. It's all right. I don't know who you're trying to impress. You're talking to kids.
Yeah, so this week we're going to talk about Anzac Day because it is coming up this Saturday. And we're going to get real about it and talk. So what do you think of Anzac Day, Jordan?
Honestly, I don't think much of Anzac Day. The only thing that I can recall ever really contemplating it was in that minute of silence where you'd sit there and you'd think that, yeah, that would suck to be in war. I'm really glad that they didn't. Thank you very much for that. And looks like I've got another 50 seconds to think of anything to myself. So yeah, I'm just gonna check out the hottest chick in my class.
Yeah, well, like the way I don't know, like I feel bad for the soldiers that were forced to go to war through conscription.
Do you honestly feel that, or are you? This is taboo tightrope. Let's be honest about this. Do you
Oh, I
actually
do a
really
bit.
care that they died?
Yeah, I do. Oh,
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I feel like, so there's two things. There's one which is like the soldiers that were like forced to go through like a ballot seems pretty crappy. And then there's the ones that just kind of like were almost, I guess, brainwashed through like propaganda and like just the idea of adventure and that kind of thing. And peer pressure, like all their peers would have been going off and that kind of thing. So you kind of feel a little bad for them because they were kind of tricked into doing this thing.
Oh, and then all the propaganda we get today about how drugs are bad for you and don't let peer pressure influence your decision on them. How much worse for you is war than any drug?
Well,
As
yeah,
if there's
like-
not way more psychological cases of complete total wrecks of human beings from war.
It's not
than
like
there is from pot.
when that was like traveling around, that thought of like, oh yeah, let's go to Turkey, like it'll be fun, like what an adventure. Like I'm sure the government weren't trying to quash that feeling. They were they would have been like, yeah, come. It'll be fun.
Sure,
yeah,
it will be.
Yeah. It just, so you kind of feel bad for them. But then but it seems as though there are a lot of
Kind
veterans.
of.
Well, you
I
do feel
actually
bad.
do really... Out of everything in history that scares me, there's the Battle of Cannae, which we're going to be talking about later on in the pod, just as a quick little tantalising piece. I think that was a baby desperately reaching for a bottle.
Right.
That sound. And if you agree, great.
Yeah.
If you don't, I completely understand why you don't.
So the Battle of Cannae and what?
Battle of Cannae, the Battle of Somme, which again was World War One, and of course that battle that I can't remember, but we all know about it, where the Australians were just forced to run at Turkish machine guns, and the Battle of Gallipoli was... I mean, Gallipoli, the movie, ends on that, I think. I've never seen it. I just
it
remember
does,
you loving that end scene of the guy going, faster than a cheetah, and then getting up,
faster. Yeah.
shot slightly after the last body on the ground for it, and then it freeze frames on that, and it's this bittersweet moment of I'm dead, but I won.
Yeah.
So,
It's like-
Gallipoli
yeah.
wasn't all bad.
Yeah, that's not really how you meant to read it, but
Yeah, I'm sure there's more sophisticated interpretations of
Gallipoli.
the Gallipoli movie.
Peter
But to
Weir's
the lame
masterpiece.
man, yeah, that's what
Why
you
not?
take away from the movie, especially if you haven't watched the movie. That's what it's
Yeah.
about. If you want to see that, go ahead and get it out.
But yeah, that movie's a good thing to bring up because, sure, like war is really bad. But there's this thing about Anzac Day which I find annoying, which kind of, it feels like it's a created day to try and give Australians a thing to have as like a cultural identifier. Like Gallipoli wasn't a particularly interesting like part of the war. Like it was a failed campaign. Like, and I know that's like, and that's the best thing about it, you know, like Aussies like doing something, like it didn't mean much, but it meant something to us. But it was,
I don't think that was the best part. I think that was really pathetic as well.
Like,
I've got
it was
to
a
say,
failed
and
campaign.
everybody would probably agree with you at that point. The fact
Yeah.
that we lost that,
We can't
and we
disagree
celebrate
that,
that,
yeah.
is actually, I've got to say, really part of the Australian spirit, and how Paul Keating wanted to change it to the Battle of Kokoda. That we should be celebrating that because we actually won that campaign, and it was to defend Australia instead of just being cannon fodder for Winston Churchill's harebrained scheme.
Exactly.
we should have been doing that.
it seems like,
But it's more Australian, don't you think? It's more
Kokoda.
Australian to celebrate that we had a go and we lost, but it was, it was one hell of a fight.
but yeah, that seems to be kind of like a problem. Like it wasn't like that was something that just like was always like a marker of Australian identity. That was like a created thing. And then it's like that's our thing that we have. I don't know, it just feels weird that that's like our thing that we're all meant to be connected with is something that had little to do with us. We'd just been kind of like forced into this campaign. We lost it, and it was just a really like kind of pathetic battle. And that's us. Like,
So you have the same gripe as Paul Keating then, essentially.
Yeah, I guess so.
That
Yeah,
it just doesn't really embiggen us
yeah.
as a
At least
nation.
choose one which we did okay in, or something which like we had, or something that had to do with us. You know, like it just seems funny. Like, and also it does feel a bit of a like I don't know. You always see stuff which like kind of will be against this, but you know, it's always like, what was the motive of Australia going in? Was it really like something that did they give their lives? It's always like they gave their lives, like for what Australian, like if like it just seems like a funny thing. They gave our lives as though they like consciously knew like I need to give my life to save Australia. Like a lot of like the Vietnam War, for instance, for them to like now we look back on it and no one can honestly say like maybe they were consciously thinking that they were giving their lives for Australia, but they weren't. They were just tricked into this, basically. Like everyone who died.
No, don't you think that they technically did give their lives?
They gave
for
their lives,
Australia,
but it wasn't like it wasn't like a sacrifice that had to be made.
No,
right?
it wasn't a sacrifice that had to be made, and in my view, that makes it even more noble that they're doing it purely for a flag.
But it doesn't make them
it's
noble.
kind of the
But
same
that makes
as
that. I hate
Roosters
that.
v
Though.
Rabbitohs, the age-old fight.
I hate that.
If those
that's
guys
something to
actually
respect.
killed each other on the field, don't you think that that's way more noble than just crashing into each other? You pansies.
No, I don't.
Savage each other.
I feel like it's not something to
Massacre, you
respect.
fools.
It's just some
we
like
came for blood.
no, it's like some blind like nationalism, right? Like it's just blindly killing yourself for something you don't know what it's even about. Like it just seems like not something to respect.
What about this? Does this sound more noble to you or less? Is Napoleon's observation that men won't die for riches or fame, they'll die for ribbons. So probably fame. I think I added the fame bit. I'm pretty sure it was just riches. So they won't die for riches, but
Yeah,
they'll
that's
die for
interesting.
ribbons, in the sense that they feel like their life has meant something. If at the end people say at the end that you know they were a great guy, and
Yeah.
here's your ribbon. Now burn the body, including the ribbon.
Yeah, like the Victoria Cross and all that kind of thing. It seems
You're incredibly impressed by somebody if they've won a Victorian cross, aren't you?
No.
You've got it. Oh, you. I can't believe I'm actually going to say this, but seriously, get out of my country.
Yeah, it
I've never
feels
felt that feeling before in my life. I can't believe that if you saw the Victoria Cross, you'd look at it and go, looks kind of like the World War I German flag. I don't know.
How would you react to it? Would you be like, "Oh, wow"?
If there was some feeble old man with his shaking hand going, look at this, honey. See that picture there? When it looked like that.
Well, that's slightly different. Yeah, maybe that would be more.
But you would patronisingly sit there and go, that's nice. And mostly focus on the urine smell in the house.
No, well, I think like it's
I think that
kind of
urine smell would dissipate from my nose. My nose would block itself off so I could focus more on it.
I think it's charming or whatever that he like, you know, that people will kill themselves, I guess, for a ribbon, but it's not something that's a good thing. Like, it seems just really kind of...
Not a good thing, but is it a good for you thing?
Yeah. It's a good for you, but it's not like a, I respect you for that. Like, that seems kind of... I don't know. And I think most Australians would disagree with me. I'm definitely a minority in that. But like...
No,
don't
I
know.
agree with the battle part. So, yeah,
it just
we're
feels like,
we're
you
in
know,
that
like-
minority together. I don't know. It's kind of that same feeling the black comedians are always describing when they walk into a room and it's filled with white people and they see one other black guy there and then they just lock eyes and they know that they're in this together. We get to raise our fists the same way that guy did in the Mexico Olympics where he was doing the Black Panther salute. We have that same feeling now, you and me, Tom.
Yeah, we'll go
We
to
are
the
in this
Anzac
together.
Day dawn service and raise our fists in protest.
While everyone else is bowing their head, we'll be doing that too as well, as that's part of the Black Panther salute, but there'll
Yeah,
also
we'll
be
bow
a
our
fist
head
in
and
the air,
raise our arms.
and everybody will wonder what that meaning is, and so it'll just be a secret between us unless you guys go and tell some other people, and then it'll be a secret in between slightly more people than that, but it is definitely going to be a mystery.
Yeah, so...
All right. We have found our beat. I was wondering if we were going to get there, but yeah, Thomas just pulled the easy way out like I did last time and said something obscenely outrageous to finish the subject. To that I say kudos. I'm glad that we got the beat because you need to get that. And currently the tally stands for all keen listeners of this taboo tightrope topic that has been going for 2 weeks now. It's 1-1 at the moment.
Yeah, so we basically
Titus,
just will talk about a topic until someone says something which just is not allowed to be published, and then that person loses the week.
And just like naughty kids in school, we seem to both really appreciate the negative behaviour we receive.
Yeah, we'd like to lose.
We want to lose. Any attention's good attention.
So yeah, speaking of war, Jordan, tell us about...
not going to be talking about that.
We're not.
Because I have a special announcement to make.
Oh, what? What is it?
As part of Cabin Fever edition. Robbie is away from a microphone, but he said, oh no, because he thought I forgot. But no, I'm not going to let this infected human being take us all down with him.
Robbie's
leaving the room to go to the toilet. He's the one. He's the one! Are you the one, Robbie? Are you going to be back? Yeah, I'm coming back, yeah. He said yes.
Watch out for the roof.
This is going to be a huge success, this segment.
All right, explain your dumb segment.
Varying opinions straight off the bat. I guess we've established the parameters of what the debate is about this particular subject. And now it's for you to decide whether this subject is dumb or awesome.
All right, let's hear it.
I am going to... throw the gauntlet on the table and say that one of us has been infected, much like the movie Cabin Fever, with a vicious man-eating virus, and to weasel out the particular culprit of this horrible disease that, because it's just bucket raining outside and the house has been penetrated and the roof is still holding up for the moment, for anybody who was wondering, but we've still got a while to go.
Peter's not here yet.
Peter's not here
that will
yet.
mark the end of the podcast.
We could be talking in a moment and then you could just hear a beep, and then you'll know that we are not dead, but emotionally just that was too much to continue the pod, but we'll be back next week. Basically, what's going to happen in this particular segment is somebody has contracted the virus, which is wet willy-itis.
Oh, God.
And wet willy-itis is exactly what you would imagine it to be. I'm going to close my eyes. One of my two great friends here who are very uncomfortable with this decision are going to give me a wet willy. One of them is the one who's infected, and I don't know which one it is, so you guys just figure it out with your eyes who's going to give me the wet willy. And I'm going to try and figure out who it is that has wet willy-itis, and if I'm correct, they'll go and get the Dettol soap, and if I'm wrong, that person gets to give the other person who's not contracted the virus yet a wet willy. So we've all got wet willy-itis together.
God, all right.
Sound
is Cabin Fever
less
the
than
movie
confusing? Because that's what it is in my head as well. Less than confusing.
Is Cabin Fever the movie we watched the other week with Kurt Russell?
No, but that's pretty much the same thing as well. That's the thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, well, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, it is as well. There's a lot of movies that this is kind of like. It is a real staple of horror.
The scene where he's testing the blood by like kind of dipping a bit of heated metal or something like that
into the blood.
Into the blood. If the blood freaks out, then it means they're infected.
Yes. Okay, that's what my ear is going to be that petri dish and your saliva is going to be that metal. So this is a much grosser than even one of the most grotesque films ever made segments, and you're going to hear the audio of somebody giving me a wet willy.
We're basically playing
live-ish.
heads down, thumbs up, and
it's just more gross.
Yeah. It's heads down, thumbs up, but you're picking the guy's thumb who always sucks his thumb, so you have to like touch this like kind of wet thumb. I hated doing that. You know what I mean?
This is going in my ear. I didn't really think about this a lot until the moment, but here it is.
All
For
right.
the good of everybody in this cabin, it's not Antarctica, but we are the closest continent to Antarctica.
All right, we're about to do
Antarctica's
it now.
spreading. We need to stop.
All right, close your eyes.
My eyes are closed. Somebody's coming over to put their finger in my ear. Oh, they're both doing it at the same time. I wasn't expecting that. Oh, one of them's wet. What, the left side was a lot wetter than the other.
There you
And the
go.
thing was really... and it was so thin. It was really thin. So
What do you mean it was
cut in. The other finger was a lot fatter and kind of just battering rammed my eardrum, while this one really just went through all the cavities, worked its way in, and went
Skinny
up
little
and
stick
down
finger.
the side to side. It did a cross in my ear cavity.
Oh, man.
All of it's wet. Oh god!
right, so
I don't want the other person to go through what I did. I need to guess who this was.
All right, who was Skinny Finger? I forget.
You have to say, as nobody knows this, but Robbie is much lankier than both of us. He is pretty much on top of. And I could be an asshole and say that it's Tom just to get Robbie to do it, but Robbie, please go get some Dettol salt. Cure yourself of wet willy-itis.
Yeah, it was Robbie.
Yeah,
Correct.
it was Robbie! We stopped it! We stopped the horrible plague. We are the heroes in the thing. Tom and I
Yeah.
just got to sit there
Nice.
untrustworthily looking at each other, sipping
In
on
the
our teas
cold.
instead of scotch, in the cold, as it is kind of cold, not as cold as Antarctica. And we're not going to freeze to death, but we're not going to put on any jumpers either
We
because we haven't earned
survived.
it.
We outlasted the thing.
And as the final sentence in that movie was something along the lines of, we're going to freeze to death, what do we do? How about we just wait here a while and see what happens? We'll do the same thing.
Ah, that's right. That's
Can't put on a jumper. Roll up your sleeves, Tom, of your yoga shirt. We have to be cold now.
We waited out. All right, well, that brings us to the end of the podcast.
Oh, we're not going to talk about the Battle of Kadai? We could do that another time. All right. Well,
I thought you were-
That's the end of the podcast.
Well, I
I got
thought
a
you
wet
were
willy,
swapping it.
and that was the finale.
Yeah, you said you're swapping it around.
Oh, all right. I guess, I said something. It's probably good to be just an honourable man and not...
Yeah, we'll do it next week. All right, see you later.
See you guys. Thank you very much for listening to me getting a wet willy and screaming. Bye.